A record-breaking £5 billion were collected by HM Revenue and Customs last year through inheritance tax. This is the highest amount ever collected. More than ever before, a growing number of taxpayers and families are now rapidly being dragged into the inheritance tax loophole. The ever-increasing property prices and the relatively long-term unchanged inheritance tax laws could be to blame. Inheritance tax is a transfer tax. It is paid when someone's property or estate is transferred to someone else upon their death. The estate that is to be transferred or inherited could consist of a home, a car, savings, and any other forms of possessions. The first £325,000 of the value of the estate is exempt from inheritance tax, also known as the tax-free inheritance. The remaining amount, or anything above £325,000 threshold, is taxed at a flat rate of 40% and to be paid by the inheritor of the estate. Though the tax-free inheritance threshold is £325,000 and increases to £425,000 if the inheritor of the estate is a child or grandchild, however, this threshold has remained the same since 2010, while some property values have more than doubled since. This means more and more estates, 90% of which are homes, are now being dragged into the inheritance tax loophole. For example, an average home purchased somewhere in London in 2010 would have costed around £250,000. However, with the current soaring house price inflation, the same property would now be worth around £475,000, an increase of almost 53%. If now the owner of this property was to pass away and it was inherited by someone else, the inheritor would pay inheritance tax on the excess amount above the threshold of £325,000, i.e. 40% on £150,000, giving an inheritance tax liability of £60,000. As property prices keep rising and the inheritance tax threshold remains the same at £325,000, the number of properties with values in excess of this threshold will increase exponentially, and over the coming years cause more and more properties to be subject to inheritance tax, therefore further increasing the overall tax liability of taxpayers, particularly of those who are said to inherit estates each generation through their families.